Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Let's talk about intergalactic law. And of course, there is something called the Space Brotherhood. Now, these are groups of extraterrestrials that are able to visit and contact many different species and planets in the universe, with the many galaxies out there. So, there is a loose confederation and there is basic law. Well, what should we do? Because it does affect everyone to a certain degree in the universe. And there are guidelines that you basically should not be overly interfering and working with other cultures, especially if they're not evolved. Pretty much very similar to Star Trek's Prime Directive, which is do not change and interact with other groups because it will affect them. Now, this makes sense on a certain crude level. Going in and helping a society go up levels of technology sounds good. Well, you'll improve your life. Yeah? What has technology really done for our society? We say it's made a lot of improvements here and there, and certainly it has, but every technology that has ever been developed has been used for military purposes. When you have an off-balance, evil, sick race of people that are so corrupted that it is impossible to assist them without causing major problems. So what does that mean? Then you don't assist. Or do you? How does that work? Well, it is a difficult situation. Then there's other hostile extraterrestrial races that come here and intermix, who have made deals with the government. Some of these are hostile, some aren't. They collect certain things and want to be left alone. Everything from water to certain minerals and other things. What does that mean? So some have done this for apparently their own personal survival, so that when they're out here, they don't particularly want to be shot at all the time. But that's still interfering. And while people think they're invincible, they're not. We have plenty of their bodies and plenty of their ships to disprove that kind of ignorant thought. But we're changing everything all the time. You know, I equate this to a nature special I saw with cameramen filming a lioness moving her cubs over to an unsafe location, actually right on top of a cobra den. Now, what do you do? Well, you're just supposed to film a good film, isn't it, to have these cubs all destroyed and killed by a snake. Fascinating for all those sick people out there that get off on stuff like this, and there's plenty of it. I'm sure the producer got a pat on his back for bringing back such upsetting stuff that people could talk about for higher ratings. The fact that you're there filming means that you are interfering with nature. Doesn't matter how little it is, and how can we judge how little or how great it is? You're there, you're in the wilderness, you're tramping around with big equipment, you got a team of people. So the fact that you don't want to interfere, you've already interfered. To allow something like this to happen is, as far as I'm concerned, a horrible travesty. It's stupid. Now, of course, you're making value judgments, etc., but, you know, there are plenty of snakes in this world and plenty of them to survive, and usually lots of food for them. There isn't that many lions. And of course, you can say that's some sort of judgment. We're making judgments every day on everything we do and affecting people's lives to incredible degrees. Plain and simple. So, to not do something there is wrong. Now, when it comes to extraterrestrials giving people information and assisting them, it used to be the fact that contact with extraterrestrials was mostly beneficial. This started in the 70s and prior. Then it started to go into the 80s and 90s, and abduction stories started to change, and they were abduction stories. Before that, it wasn't that much abductions. It was mostly interactions, and people were healed. They opened up psychic empowerments within the person so they could communicate better, and these all had positive effects on them. And of course, these are the type of things we're trying to seek out today from extraterrestrials. We're not necessarily looking for, how do I make gold bars? If they even know how to do any of that. And people are under the impression that extraterrestrials are somehow smarter and better. Well, I haven't seen that. They have certain technologies, mostly because they've survived a few 100 million, possibly billions of years advanced of us. Earth is supposed to be 2 billion years younger than these other places. Well, a billion years is a long time. So civilizations have a huge head start on us. But are they smarter? Are they better? What have they done? Well, they've survived, and there are good ones and bad ones. And they've survived in different realities. Well, I'm not sure what all that means. That's just pretty common. And what we have here on Earth is probably what's very similar out into the universe, except they've probably become more sadistic and evil to survive and eliminate others. And certainly it doesn't seem to be a huge, great empowerment of assisting the planet. Certainly that isn't happening. They aren't giving any information of value. They are contacting stooges and bozos, who then produce absolutely nothing. Now, some others are being contacted, but, when you contact somebody in a very strange way, now humans, Earth beings, cannot handle people popping into their houses. They cannot handle that. They can't handle being abducted, being anally probed, all the things that go on that is a massive invasion of your psyche. Now, we do this to animals all the time, and they are traumatized by that. People don't understand that there's an awful lot of problems and concerns with animals that become overly stressed, that die from becoming stressed. Should they look at us any differently? Well, not really, but let's remember that they are still invading our space, and what are they getting from it? And we are a little bit more advanced in terms of how we're interacting and what we're doing on the society, and that's not necessarily a good advancement over animals who are in perfect balance with their reality, and we're not. So the fact that we're not in perfect balance makes humans much more vulnerable, Earth beings, and particularly their psyche. This traumatizes people. People who go through these things are not getting anything positive from it. They don't seem to be healed any longer. Their psychic capacities are so traumatized by these things that they're not getting any benefits from it. So in general, this is against intergalactic law. You're not supposed to interact at this level. Now, like all laws and everywhere, they are obeyed to a certain degree. Maybe a lot of people obey them to the letter of the law. A lot of them bend it. A lot of them for whatever that is. After all, they come here and do what they want to a certain degree. So what are they going? How are they going to interact? Maybe someone is an evangelist from Galactic Law. I'm from Galactic Law. I'm an evangelist. I'm going to teach you all that. Yeah, we really need that. So these people will bend and break the intergalactic law. Other ones will say they want to party. They want to use and abuse. Maybe they're trying to get something. There's been I believe, false gossip. The fact that these certain races are dying and they need our DNA. Well, what a convenient story that is. Don't buy it. So basically, you're supposed to stay at it. And when you come in and invade somebody's house, and of course, the goofball Whitley Strieber, who's been terrorized by his, quote, visitors for so many years, can certainly attest to what kind of strange things these are. And they are very, very strange. Very few people have a touch from this physical, tiny box world that we live in. Our realities are very, very limited of what society wants to talk about. To higher spiritual and ascension type realities, which are quite different, and the people who want to experiment with psychedelics. So a whole different worlds are created there, but very few people ultimately go through that. And what you're doing is when you have physical things like this that are not coming from a particular contact with some spirit drug, or some meditative epiphany that you get through certain spiritual practices. When you start getting into these very in-your-face, instantly, I'm not prepared, let's do it, you are broken mentally. Very few people can handle it. They have no right to do that, and they shouldn't be coming into your home, abducting you and doing it. This is horrible criminal activity. And you have to wonder, what is their motive to do this? And how is this in any way helping you? Well, there is no help. We have several noted cases of extraterrestrial contact with people who seem to be goofballs that have done absolutely nothing. Let's talk about the PK Man. Now, here's a guy who claimed to move weather systems, was a drunk, died of cirrhosis of the liver, apparently. Certainly was not a very stable person in most of his activities, and couldn't really figure out what to do with this claims that he got empowerment from what were considered insectoid aliens, which I don't really believe. But there's been cases of people seeing these praying mantis-type beings that are highly intelligent, which again doesn't make too much sense because they have relatively small brains. They don't really have the physicality to build anything. So I'm very leery about that. Generally, a species has to look like ours in some way to make things, etc. You got to have hands, feet, you got to stand up, you got to do this. So when you start getting into these other things, it becomes very strange. And we have to be very careful. What's an extraterrestrial? What's a dimensional being? What are all these things that go with it? But the bottom line is that this guy was a very unstable guy who really couldn't figure out life and started threatening people because he wanted money to do his research instead of figuring out ways of using his empowerments like winning the lotto. What was the problem there? Why aren't you able to do things very directly from the help of very advanced instead of trying to bring giant storms into areas and threatening people if they didn't pay, or hurting football teams because they didn't pay you to assist them? I mean, this is very, very low-level thinking. And it's generally not a way you're going to get anything from anybody anyway, because they're not going to believe you. And they're going to, well, we got to pay this guy because he's going to psychically attack me. Imagine going to all those rich pricks that own all these football teams and telling them that. Come on. So he couldn't figure out how to do anything except threaten people. And it's lucky the time he was, because if it was this day and age, he would have been assassinated or in prison for terrorist threats, and rightfully so. You don't do what I'm going to move this storm in this place. I'm going to cause earthquakes. I believe a movie was made about him that people don't talk about called The Methuselah Touch, I believe, with Richard Burton, which was a guy who had this kind of power and was knocking planes out of the air and killing people. Very interesting. Which I believe was based on that case, this old movie. Very interesting. So the whole idea is that actually what aliens are doing, and of course we can go through several other contactees if they are, and I'm not sure whether they are or not. Billy Meyer produces absolutely nothing. Billy Meyer's been around for 70 years of contact, they claim. 40,000 written pages of information that he got from extraterrestrials. Not one line has anything to do with anything practical. How to generate energy, sacred symbols that'll make things grow better, healing of certain diseases. And not with giving you a tablet or something instant, but what about just something that works well? Zero. Absolutely nothing. So as it goes with all these realities, where do we get information? Even with people like Uri Geller, who they apparently claim has been empowered that way from a bolt that was shot at him as a child. Well, Uri Geller is basically a nice guy. He's basically talks about love and peace and everything else, but he's very much connected to his Jewish heritage, and everything is filtered through that. So I'm not sure what he's ever come up with either. He's personally empowered. He's, I don't know what he's done in the world to help anybody. He doesn't seem like he's healing people. He's not writing books on how to do things. He doesn't run classes. He doesn't do much of anything. He's made a few bucks for himself, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I mean, there's not a bigger picture there. There's not the Uri Geller Institute for Psychic Studies that is helping people, getting information out and finding others. So, I mean, again, that's not a very good pick. And we can go through all the contactees that claim that, and they have nothing to offer. Now, they want to get involved in societies and oftentimes give people philosophical mumbo-jumbo, and that's what it is. We don't need more philosophy. Quite frankly, all of this has been written down, and written down pretty well. I mean, we have very diverse traditions, and they have some very potent, good information there of how to balance yourself, what you shouldn't be doing as a human being, how to reach higher levels of consciousness. All of this we have, and we have 10,000 years of it from multi-traditions. We have multi-religions, which basically all teach the same thing, but there are many offshoots of that which are very profound. We have very profound philosophers that go back thousands of years, and even modern ones. Do we need their opinion on philosophy? They're not even earth-based. What do they know? They don't know what an earth being is going through. They're not under the same thing. But they don't teach you anything profound or give you any techniques. Don't kill each other. I've heard that before. Take care of the planet. I've heard that before. So, I mean, their cosmic consciousness, which is just a rehash of the ancient philosophical understandings, are all there. We've had them for thousands of years. It doesn't work. We need practical tools to back that up. Sick, poor people are not going to make good decisions. How do we handle the unbalanced human consciousness? They don't talk about any of this. The information they have to offer us is useless philosophical mumbo-jumbo. It doesn't change anybody. It is not new. It is not special. And who cares? It's there. You want to seek great thoughts. You want to think about it. Well, all the books are there, but we have a terrible conduit called human consciousness that is the garbage junk out there. Now, we have to figure out how to control that. We also control things by changing our physical environment. If people are less controlled by finances, they're going to make decisions that are not based on greed and evil. If people are less sexual, they're not going to make decisions based on sex. If people are well, they're going to be able to make better decisions and look at the long term and said, well, I've got a very limited lifespan. I'm going to grab anything I can and step on anybody I can. Are they too stupid to know this? Are they so stupid that they pick a carnival drug addict drunkard such as the PK man? Well, I'm afraid they do. And it goes on and on and on with these contactee types, which all seem to go into, because the minute you're impressed by something that is out of the ordinary, it's in a religious epiphany. It can't be extraterrestrials. It has to be God. And, of course, if God's talking to me, I'm Jesus. I'm the prophet. Billy Meyer, exactly what he says. He's the prophet. He's reincarnated. Yeah, this uneducated, one-armed guy, and, of course, and I'm not sure education means anything, but I don't know how much analytical thinking we can have. But we got 70 years of stuff, and he's come out with nothing. He hasn't even translated most of his writings, those 40,000 pages. Only a small percentage of them are in English, the international language, to communicate. Right there, that shows a lack of being able to get information out to the masses, if that's what the goal of these people were, or him himself and his controllers, which is one of the major problems with Billy Meyer. He's being controlled by very negative people. So the whole idea is that the empowerments that used to be there in the extraterrestrial contact, well, Galactic Law states you're not supposed to do that for this particular reason. So there's variances of this. And those that break the law, who do things in stronger commitments and contacts, I should say, are not really obeying, nor are they doing anything of value. This is pretty sad. None of our social problems are even being addressed. Now, the point is, do we really need them to address it anyway? We talk about this, saying that, oh, well, isn't there a way to live longer? Isn't there free energy? We could use all this. Yes. I'm afraid, people, it's already here. here. We have endless ways to heal everything, and from frequencies to light energies to colors to everything else that's out there. I mean, there's tons of ways to heal people that are a corrupt, evil society, which they will not figure out or assist us in correcting. Will not do. Free energy? We've had free energy forever. There's one thing on this planet which is based on the atropic idea of breaking down. When something breaks down, heat is created. Heat, you can then be turned into moving of generators, to put it simply. So we have it all over the place. We could generate energy from waves on the beach. People don't know about it. Geothermal. Ooh. Yeah, that's drilling into the earth. As far as I've been seeing, there's an awful big earth out there. A lot of oceans. We could extract energy from just about everything. We have energy from water. Hydrogen power, it works well, it's 100% pure and clean. Do we need extraterrestrials to come in and tell us 0 point energy? Who cares? We don't need it. 0 point energy will not be applied, just like none of these other things are applied. The entire planet is bathed with heat and sun rays. Yet virtually tiny bits of solar power are used. Places like California, where it's sunny, and particularly Southern California, almost every day, very little solar power is used. Yet we have millions and billions of square feet of receptor possibilities called the tops of buildings, houses, etc. Why don't we have solar panels on every square inch and It doesn't take up extra room. It's right there on top of your house. It creates millions of high-paying jobs. Why? Do we need them to say, put these two substances together? This is how 0 point energy works. Well, who's going to apply that anywhere? If you don't apply hydrogen, which is simple and easy, and solar, we certainly are not going to apply 0 point energy. I mean, everybody has to wake up and know what's going on. So the contact with these extraterrestrials in terms of this kind of information, they're not even giving it anyway. They're not telling anybody anything. They're not giving you sacred geometric shapes that will assist in growth. They're not giving you anything to help making you well, so that if you're not sick and you feel good, you'll probably make better decisions. None of this is happening, and never will. And as I said, the kind of people they pick for contacts, and we can go on and on. And of course, other people have been contacted. And of course, since they're in the public domain bigger, they're not going to come out and say that they are in contact with aliens. Their entire life would be ruined. And it's ruined by their contact as well. And of course, the aliens doing this know it. So you have to wonder what their moral compass is anyway. Why are they messing with humans to the extent of invading their house and using them as experimental guinea pigs? You got to wonder what that's all about. Personally, I'm against doing any type of medical research on animals or anything else. If you're so advanced, you don't need to do that. Why aren't they taking energetic field samples and figuring out what they need to know instead of anally probing you? What is that all about? If Whitley Strieber, the nuts of all nuts, was contacted, well, another horrible person to contact, which has absolutely no idea of what's happening. Zero. His conclusions and him having sex with aliens and all the other things that he does and floating up to wires when he was a kid, all this kind of nonsense coming from him and his misunderstanding of every possible thing that he experiences. I mean, this guy's a horror writer. He wrote The Howling that was made into movies and other things that were made into movies as well, including his goofball book on so-called contact with the visitors, which he doesn't really in any way state were aliens until recently, and he still doesn't know. Everybody's all mixed together with him. He sees gnomes. Well, is this the kind of guy you want to contact? And what has he brought back from all this? When confronted that, can he get practical information, he states, oh, no, they're not going to give us any of that. Oh, how convenient, Whitley. Write another book about it, though. Cling, cling. We need more cash register money. Whitley Strieber is 70 years old and has produced absolutely nothing. Billy Meyer is 82 or 3, produced absolutely nothing. While Uri Geller has shown that he has power in this area, what has it added up to? The PK man died an alcoholic at a fairly young age, and everything with him, including what was happening there and his family, has all disappeared. We have no idea what's going on. And of course, it's never followed up on. A fairly poor book was written on the PK Man, which doesn't give you much details. There's not much there. There's no follow-up, everything else. Same old story with all these cases. And it doesn't matter. It didn't work. He wasn't able to prove to become wealthy from it. He couldn't control his life. He couldn't control his alcoholism. Oh, that's another good guy to pick contact with, which, again, I don't believe had contact. So all of these things that happen don't work too well. But that also shows the problem of coming here and helping people. Well, they never work out. You go to the head of apparently, Barry Tass states that head of a network was contacted by aliens, and his entire life was thrown in the trash after that. He was traumatized. He couldn't function right. He certainly didn't come out and talk about it because he couldn't in his position. You're a nut job. You're going to give somebody major responsibilities and a giant paycheck who's going around talking about contacting aliens. Well, they've created that atmosphere. It's not going to happen. So there's the other problem with that. So you go to people who are actually better intellectually or better connected, and these are actually worse. Then you have to go to goofballs like Billy Meyer, who has absolutely nothing and nothing to lose. But by the way, he was threatened and shot at many times for his babblings of nothing. But certainly he wasn't embraced that much, except by very corrupt people who came in and handle him now. So when you look at all this stuff, this is the big problem with making contact. What can extraterrestrials do? And I'm going to cover that in another video, and we are working on trying to get contact so they do have the abilities to open up the energetic, psychic empowerment energy fields that are in human consciousness. They are able to give you, quote, very strong, quote, abilities. And this is something that should be sought after. We are always seeking for higher levels of empowerment. People are doing it by praying to a God form. People are doing all sorts of spiritual practices, psychic practices, opening up their kundalini, stimulating their chakras, etc. All of this is what people are doing to try and empower themselves. On the more spiritual realm, people are trying to connect to spirits of all types and shapes, as well as those who have passed over. And of course, as I've mentioned already, God forms, angels, fairies. Well, what is the point of contact with them? Well, ultimately, people are seeking some sort of empowerment over the normal. You're not really looking for philosophical information. People work with nature spirits to grow huge crops. So they're not necessarily getting wisdom from that, even though some are seeking it. But most of these things are, how can I help myself? How can I empower myself more in this very dangerous, difficult world? None of this comes from extraterrestrials. But we, indirectly, or from all these people who claim they have contact. Now, you can open up these psychic centers. You need to get these psychic centers opened up so you function high level. So you become a Uri Geller who definitely has lots of power. It appears, maybe in recent times, this has waned, but who knows? The bottom line, if everybody was operating more on a psychic level and empowering themselves, I think the world would be in a much better place. It's disempowered people that are corrupt, not empowered people. When you're empowered, you have more choices. You don't have to follow along with the crowd to survive. So this kind of empowerment, which they are very able to do, is extremely important to you. Other things are not. If you are writing philosophical mumbo-jumbo down that we already have tens of thousands of ancient texts that have been around for over 10,000 or more years, I say things go back 50, 100,000 years to the great societies. Atlantis, Mu, all those great societies, particularly in Central and South America. So all of these things are been there. We don't need that philosophical mumbo-jumbo. We need to somehow empower the individual to a level of strength where hopefully through other cosmic type energies start making right decisions for the betterment of everyone, which breeds an empowered, happy society that doesn't kill and murder each other and works together as a team. These are fantasies, but we certainly don't need more philosophical mumbo-jumbo. We have this. We're still quoting the ancient Greeks from 3,000 years ago. I mean, the absurdity of thinking that we need something new from a society of people that don't know anything about Earth-based realities is absurd. Stay out of that. Give us practical assistance to build our reality. Don't give me mumbo-jumbo. Don't take me on a spaceship and show me how bad the Earth is and how badly polluted it is. We know all this. People have been talking about this for hundreds and hundreds of years and never changing it. It is worthless. And are they that stupid to think that that has an impression and that this information you're going to take back to whom? The news media? The 100% controlled criminal news media? And they're going to somehow make changes and you're going to tell people to stop killing each other? Take care of the planet. I mean, what you're really saying here in a fashion of some sort is, well, we're getting back to the 10 Commandments, aren't we? Which are relatively okay. It's awful base knowledge there, and some of it's kind of silly. But, of course, it gets back to the intergalactic universal law of the endless universe. And that is, don't rob, rape, and kill people. It's just not, that's not the way to function. And, of course, that can be extrapolated to don't rob and rape and kill your environment, which you live off of. This is also, so the whole idea is that aliens are not very intelligent. A lot of these advanced cultures have been tracked down to using nuclear power. The Janus group of people had to leave their planet because their nuclear power plants blew up. Well, why were you using that to begin with? Many UFOs have given off very powerful radiation because they're using those type of engines. How primitive is that if that they're so far advanced from us? It's still something that is so powerful that these so-called advanced cultures are using. And there's a lot of literature saying that people exposed to these craft had radiation burns because there was so much radiation there. And apparently they protected themselves. But that certainly isn't advanced to me. Now, this seems to have changed over the years, and there seems to be less of those incidences, but certainly this is a very noted case and continues to come up. As I mentioned, the Janus group talked about this in great detail. And their entire civilization was destroyed because they used radioactive generators that blew up. Interesting. So they're not all that smart of people. We can't think that they have a great moral compass. They certainly don't seem to be doing anything to help people. Their contact is pretty pitiful in terms of what they're giving people. Some people get a little more practical than others, but people never seem to demand physical tools from them. My personal contact, I demanded that and I got it to a degree. No, they don't like this. They don't like to do that. But if you're going to be a dork and you're not going to demand some sort of physical tools to assist you in life, well, that's the kind of suckers they like. So I just think they get off of it. Now, they could be very sociopathic in general. So what can we judge alien societies from? What do they do? How do they act? What are their involvements? Well, you got to remember, like everything else on this planet and the universe, there's good and bad and levels of good and bad. But I don't know why you'd possibly respect or deal with Earth beings who are just destroying the planet, murdering each other, and really are a psychotic race of people. The human race has done absolutely nothing. And we've only got up to a pathetic level of involvement, of evolution, with crude technologies. And this has really only happened in the last 50 years or so. Before that, nothing really changed. We have breakthroughs now mostly because of information. There's so much out there that people are exploring everything, but they're controlled by the corrupt society that doesn't want to do anything different because they're making money from the old way, and why bother? We got all this oil, we're going to use it all up and make you pay for it. Why should we possibly convert over to something else? So if you're going to work with a society like that, you're going to have innate problems. And giving them philosophy, which people, as I've said, even if we go to semi-modern times, going back to 4,000 years of the start of Buddhism and Judaism, which is a very pagan religion, by the way, with animal sacrifice and everything else. So the point of even going back to that, if you consider that philosophical value of it, and Buddhism tends to have good rap but doesn't do anything, that's not going to help society. We need tools to do things. And if that changes society radically, well, so what? What's the big deal? Their presence changes society. Their constant ships coming here, their constant interact with maybe a huge percentage of this population, which could be, they could have contacted billions and billions of people that you don't have any recall. We don't know. That certainly is contact at levels that is irresponsible. And the traumatizing of so many people that have this contact is sad. It shows to me a very lack of caring, a very unphilosophical group of people, and a very sociopathic way of operating. So we need to keep this all in mind. Now, in terms of positive benefits that you can get, well, there are ways of doing this. I'm going to talk about that in another video. Until next time.